In a small, bustling market town nestled amongst rolling hills, where the air smelled of rich earth and fragrant spices, lived a young woman named Anya. Anya was a flower plucked too soon from the vine, for the harsh hand of fate had taken her beloved parents many years ago, leaving her alone in the world. Yet, despite the loneliness that sometimes settled upon her like the evening mist, Anya was not one to wither. No, Anya was strong, resilient, and incredibly hardworking. She owned a tiny, humble shop, barely more than a stall really, stacked with a few basic goods: sacks of maize flour, bundles of dried beans, small gourds of cooking oil, and maybe a few bright pieces of cloth. It wasn't much, but it was hers. From sunup to sundown, Anya was there, sweeping the dust from her stoop, arranging her wares with meticulous care, and greeting every customer with a smile that reached her kind eyes. Life was hard. Sometimes the rains failed, and the crops were thin. Sometimes the customers were few, and the coins in her small wooden till were even fewer. There were days when Anya's stomach rumbled with hunger, days when the roof of her small, mud brick house leaked, and days when the loneliness felt like a heavy stone in her chest. But still, she persevered. Her hands, though small, were strong from lifting sacks and counting coins. Her spirit, though tested, remained unbroken. She believed, deep in her heart, that even in the darkest times, the good deed, a kind word, could light a path forward. This belief was her most precious possession. One sweltering afternoon, when the sun beat down fiercely and the market was quiet, a figure approached Anya's stall. He was a man, but unlike the other traders and villagers Anya knew. His clothes were tattered and dusty, his sandals worn thin. He looked weary, as though he had traveled a great distance on foot. His face, though smudged with dirt, had a certain dignity about it, but his eyes held a look of profound sadness, or perhaps something else Anya couldn't quite place. He looked, for all the world, like a man who had lost everything. Anya's heart, always quick to feel compassion, went out to him. She had known hardship, she had known loss, and she understood the silent language of suffering. She straightened up from where she was rearranging her beans and offered him her customary warm smile. "Greetings, stranger," she said softly, her voice gentle as a mother's lullaby. "May I help you?" The man stopped before her stall, his gaze sweeping over her humble offerings. He didn't speak for a moment, then Anya noticed his eyes lingered on her face, as if searching for something. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the world, he spoke. His voice was low, rough, like gravel, but there was a hint of refinement beneath the surface, something Anya, in her simplicity, did not recognize. "Good day, kind woman," he replied, his voice hesitant. I am just passing through. I have traveled far, and I am in need of a little sustenance. But alas, I have nothing. My few coins were stolen on the road." He held up his hands, palms open, in a gesture of emptiness. Anya's heart twisted. A man, hungry and penniless, far from home. This was a test, she felt, a test of the kindness her parents had always taught her was the truest wealth. "Ah," she said, her smile not faltering for an instant. "Do not worry yourself about coins today, stranger. Everyone deserves to eat." She reached for a small sack of ground maize, enough for a simple porridge, and a couple of ripe tomatoes from a basket. She also selected a few dried fish, a source of protein and flavor. As she gathered the items, the man watched her, his eyes intense, but she didn't notice. She was focused only on helping. "Here," she said, presenting him with a small bundle. "Take these. It is not much, but it can sustain you for a day or two." The man looked at the food, then back at Anya. His expression was unreadable. "But you are a trader. You need to sell your goods to live." Anya shrugged, a light, graceful movement. "True. But one cannot put a price on a full belly or a grateful heart. There will be other customers." And if not, well, we make do. She paused, then added softly, my parents always taught me that kindness given freely returns to you tenfold, though not always in the way you expect. The man took the bundle, his fingers brushing against hers. She felt a strange warmth from his touch, the fleeting connection. I thank you, kind woman, he said, his voice softer now. You have a good heart. It is just the way I am, Anya replied simply. May your journey be safe. He nodded, a slow, deliberate nod, and then, with a final, lingering look at her, he turned and walked away, blending back into the dusty road from which he had come. Anya watched him go, a quiet satisfaction settling in her heart. She hadn't made any money, but she had done something good. That felt like enough. Days turned into weeks. The market ebbed and flowed with customers. Anya continued her tireless work, her kindness a constant presence in her little corner of the world. She would give a hungry child a piece of fruit, share water with a thirsty traveler, offer a listening ear to someone burdened by worries. Her small shop became known not just for its goods, but for the warmth of the woman who ran it. Then, one afternoon, the same man appeared again. He still wore the dusty, worn clothes, still looked weary. Anya recognized him instantly. Greetings, stranger. She called out, a smile lighting her face. Welcome back. How was your journey? He approached slowly, the faint smile touching his lips. It was eventful, he said. And I found myself drawn back to this place, and to your kindness. Anya gestured towards her stall. Are you in need again? Please tell me what you need. He shook his head slightly. Today, I hoped to perhaps work for something. Do you have any tasks that need doing? Perhaps lifting those heavy sacks? Anya looked at him. He didn't look particularly strong, but his eyes held a determined glint. She had a few sacks of beans that needed moving, heavy work for her alone. Well, she considered, I do have a few sacks that need shifting. It is hard work. I am not afraid of hard work, he said quietly. Name your price. Anya thought for a moment. She needed help, and he needed to earn something. But she couldn't bring herself to haggle with a man she knew was struggling. If you help me move the sacks, she said, I will give you a good meal, some ugali and stew, perhaps. And enough flour for another day's meal. His eyes widened slightly in surprise, then softened. That is more than generous. Agreed. And so, the man, whose name Anya still didn't know, set to work. He was surprisingly strong, despite his appearance, lifting and carrying the heavy sacks with a steady rhythm. Anya watched him, impressed by his quiet efficiency and lack of complaint. As he worked, she prepared the meal she had promised him. When the work was done, she set out 2 bowls of hot, fragrant stew and a generous portion of ugali outside her stall. Come, share this meal with me, she invited. He hesitated, looking at the simple feast. Are you sure? You have worked hard too. Of course. She insisted. A shared meal tastes sweeter. They sat together, side by side, eating in companionable silence. He ate with a quiet hunger, savoring each bite. Anya noticed that his manners, despite his rough exterior, were refined. He ate neatly, spoke little, and when he did, it was with thoughtful words. As they finished eating, he looked at her, his gaze steady. You are truly an exceptional woman, Anya, he said, using her name for the first time. Your kindness is not just a facade, it is the very core of who you are. Anya blushed slightly. It is just the way I was raised. My parents believed in treating everyone with respect, no matter their station. She spoke a little about her parents then, how they had taught her everything she knew about farming and trading, about honesty and compassion. How their passing had left a void, but also a legacy of love and resilience that she carried within her. The man listened intently, his eyes never leaving her face, a deep, thoughtful expression on his own. From that day on, the man started visiting Anya's shop more frequently. He would always offer to help with tasks, sweeping, arranging goods, helping customers carry purchases. He never asked for money, only a meal or a small portion of goods. Anya, in turn, always made sure he was fed and had something to take with him. They talked for hours during the quiet times. He asked her about her life, her dreams, her challenges. He listened patiently, offering quiet wisdom and encouragement that surprised her coming from a man who seemed to have nothing. He, in turn, spoke vaguely of his travels, of seeing different places and meeting different people. He never revealed much about himself, his past, or where he came from, and Anya, respecting his privacy, never pressed. She learned his name was David. He was quiet, observant, and possessed a depth of knowledge that hinted at an education far beyond what his current circumstances suggested. He knew about things she had only heard whispers of faraway cities, different cultures, the complexities of trade on a large scale. Sometimes, he would offer subtle advice on how to arrange her stall or what goods might sell better, and Anya, trusting his quiet wisdom, would listen and often find his suggestions helpful. Her small business began to prosper, slowly but steadily. As the weeks turned into months, a quiet companionship grew between them. Anya found herself looking forward to David's visits. His presence brought a sense of comfort and safety that she hadn't felt since her parents were alive. He never made her feel like she owed him anything, their interactions were based on mutual respect and genuine care. One evening, as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the market, David was helping Anya close up her shop. A group of young men, known for being disruptive and sometimes dangerous, swaggered past. They saw Anya and David, and one of them, a big, loud fellow named Juma, sneered. "Look, look!" Juma called out, his voice mocking. Anya the kind, sharing her scraps with a beggar. "Be careful, girl, he might steal what little you have." Anya's heart pounded. She had dealt with such unpleasantness before, usually by ignoring it or quietly asking them to leave. But this time, she felt a surge of protectiveness, not just for herself, but for David. Before she could speak, David stepped forward, placing himself subtly between Anya and the men. Despite his worn clothes, he stood tall, his posture suddenly radiating a quiet authority that Anya had never seen before. "Gentleman," David said, his voice low but firm, entirely devoid of fear. "The lady is under my protection. I suggest you move along." Juma and his friends stopped, surprised by the man's unexpected confidence. Juma laughed, a harsh, unpleasant sound. "Protection? You? A ragged vagrant? What will you do, throw your empty pockets at us?" David didn't raise his voice, but his eyes, usually soft when he looked at Anya, were now hard and cold. "I advise you not to underestimate a quiet man, Juma. And I advise you even more strongly not to disrespect this woman. Now, leave." There was a tense silence. Juma looked at David, trying to read him. There was something in David's gaze, a steely resolve, that made Juma pause. Despite himself, he felt a flicker of unease. This was not the reaction he expected from a beggar. With a final, disgruntled sneer, Juma motioned to his friends. "This isn't worth it," he grumbled. "Let's go." They walked away, still grumbling. Anya let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She looked at David, her eyes wide with astonishment. "David," she whispered, you were so brave." "Thank you." David turned back to her, the hardness vanishing from his eyes, replaced by his usual gentle warmth. "No man should disrespect a woman, Anya. Especially not a woman like you." He reached out and gently touched her arm. "Are you all right?" She nodded, still slightly shaken, but deeply touched. In that moment, looking into his kind, protective eyes, Anya felt a feeling bloom in her chest, something warm and unfamiliar. It wasn't just friendship anymore. Their bond deepened after that evening. David's visits became longer, more frequent. They would talk about everything and nothing, sharing stories, dreams, and fears. Anya found herself sharing things with him that she had never told anyone, not even her closest friends before her parents passed. David listened with an empathy that healed old wounds and soothed lingering sadness. He continued to help her around the shop, his presence a quiet, steady support. Anya started preparing extra food every day, just in case David stopped by. She mended a tear in his shirt once, and he accepted her help with a look of gratitude that made her heart sing. One market day, a wealthy merchant from a nearby town visited Anya's stall. He was known for being shrewd and difficult. He examined her goods, picked faults, and tried to haggle fiercely over prices. Anya, though polite, held her ground, knowing the fair value of her goods and refusing to be cheated. The merchant grew frustrated and started raising his voice, attracting attention. David, who was quietly organizing some sacks nearby, stepped forward. He spoke to the merchant in a low voice, using language and terms of trade that were far beyond Anya's understanding. He calmly pointed out the quality of Anya's goods, explained the fair market prices, and did so with such quiet authority and knowledge that the merchant was taken aback. He argued for a few more minutes, but David's logic was unassailable, his demeanor unyielding. Finally, muttering under his breath, the merchant grudgingly agreed to a fair price and completed his purchase, casting a wary look at David as he left. Anya stared at David, utterly bewildered. "David, how did you know all that? You sounded like a seasoned businessman." David gave her a small, enigmatic smile. "I have traveled widely, Anya. I have seen many markets, had many negotiations." He shrugged, his eyes twinkling slightly. "Sometimes, one learns things along the way." Anya knew there was more to David than met the eye. His worn clothes and humble demeanor were clearly a disguise, a carefully crafted shell. But why? Why would a man with such knowledge and authority choose to live like this? 1,000 questions swirled in her mind, but she held them back. David had shown her nothing but kindness, respect, and support. His past, his secrets, were his to share when and if he was ready. She trusted him. She trusted him completely. The love that had begun to blossom in Anya's heart grew stronger with each passing day. It was a quiet, steady love, built on shared meals, gentle conversations, mutual respect, and the unspoken understanding that passed between them. She loved him not for what he might be, but for the man she knew, the kind, wise, protective soul who had wandered into her life in worn-out shoes and changed it forever. One cool evening, as the market was winding down and the first stars were appearing in the twilight sky, David came to Anya's shop. He wasn't wearing his usual worn clothes. He was dressed in simple but clean and well-made attire. His face was clean, his hair neatly combed. He looked different. Still the same man, but somehow more defined, less obscured by dust and weariness. He stood before her, looking nervous for the first time since she had met him. Anya's heart beat a little faster. This felt significant. "Anya," he began, his voice soft but serious. "There is something I need to tell you. Something important." Anya nodded, her gaze fixed on him. "I am listening, David." He took a deep breath. "My name is David. That part is true. But I am not a poor traveler who lost his coins." He paused, and Anya waited, her heart pounding in anticipation. "I am," he continued, his voice dropping slightly, "David, the son of Elder Kipkomboy. I am from the family that owns the large estates beyond the hills. The family that owns much of the land, the livestock, the businesses in this region." Anya stared at him, stunned. Elder Kipkomboy was a legendary figure in the region, known for his immense wealth and influence. His son, David, was rumored to have traveled the world, educated in faraway lands, preparing to take over the family's vast enterprises. She had heard stories, whispers, but she had never connected that name to the dusty man who ate ugali by her stall. You are that David?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. He nodded, his gaze steady. "I am. I have spent the last year traveling, but not in the way I let you believe. After my studies abroad, my father wanted me to immediately take over my responsibilities. But I felt I needed to understand the heart of our people, to see life not from the perspective of wealth and privilege, but from the ground up. I wanted to see if kindness still existed in the world, untainted by the hope of reward. I wanted to find a place where genuine human connection was valued above all else." He stepped closer, reaching out to gently take her hands. His hands were clean, well manicured, the hands of a man who did not live a life of manual labor. "I came to this market," he continued, his voice full of emotion, disguised, pretending to be poor. "I watched people. I saw hardship, yes, but I also saw generosity and kindness. And then I saw you, Anya." His gaze softened, filled with a warmth that made Anya's breath catch in her throat. "I saw you, a young woman who had nothing but a small shop, who had faced loss and hardship, yet whose heart was overflowing with compassion. You gave me food when I said I had nothing. You offered me work and shared your own meal. You defended me when I was mocked. You saw me, not as a beggar, but as a fellow human being deserving of respect and kindness." He squeezed her hands gently. "Anya, I have seen the world. I have met kings and merchants, scholars and soldiers. But in all my travels, I have never met anyone with a soul as beautiful, as pure, as truly kind as yours." He looked deeply into her eyes, and his voice grew even softer, filled with a sincerity that reached into Anya's very core. "My time pretending has shown me many things, but the most important thing it has shown me is you. You are the true wealth, Anya. Your kindness is more precious than all the gold in my family's vaults. I came seeking a test of humanity, and I found the best of it embodied in you." He took another deep breath, his expression serious and hopeful. "Anya, I did not come back today to simply tell you who I am. I came back to ask you something. My heart, which was searching for something real, has found its home with you. I know I have not come to you as a rich man, but as the man you knew, the man you were kind to. Will you, Anya, with your beautiful, kind heart, do me the immense honor of becoming my wife? Will you share your life, your dreams, your future with me? Will you build a future not of wealth alone, but of kindness and love, by my side?" Anya was speechless, tears welling up in her eyes. The dusty stranger she had helped, the man who had shared her meager meals and defended her honor, the man she had unknowingly fallen in love with, was a rich and powerful man. But that didn't matter. What mattered was his heart, his humility, his deep respect for her. She looked at him, at the sincerity in his eyes, at the gentle hope on his face. She saw the same kind soul who had sat with her, listened to her, and protected her. "David," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. You came into my life when I was alone, when I felt unseen. You saw me, truly saw me. You treated me with dignity when you had nothing, or so I thought. Your heart is true." She smiled through her tears, a radiant, joyful smile. "Yes, David," she said clearly, her voice gaining strength. "Yes, I will marry you. I will share my life with you. My kindness led me to you, and my love will keep me by your side." A wave of relief and joy washed over David's face. He gently pulled her into a warm, tender embrace, holding her close as the stars twinkled above them, witnesses to this extraordinary moment born of simple kindness. News of the engagement spread like wildfire through the market and the surrounding villages. The poor orphan shopkeeper marrying the rich son of Elder Kip Comboy. It was the talk of the region. Some were astonished, some were envious, but many who knew Anya, who had witnessed her tireless work and boundless compassion, rejoiced. They knew this was a match made not by wealth or status, but by the truest form of richness, a good heart. Elder Kipkomboi and his wife, upon hearing the full story of David's journey and how he had chosen his bride, were initially surprised, but then filled with immense pride. Their son, the heir to their legacy, had proven himself to be not just intelligent and capable, but wise and discerning, choosing a partner based on character rather than fortune. They welcomed Anya into their family with open arms, touched by her grace and genuine spirit. The wedding was the most beautiful celebration the region had seen in years. It was held on the sprawling grounds of the Kipkomboi estate, a place of manicured gardens and grand houses that Anya had only ever seen from a distance. But Anya walked through it all with the same quiet dignity and soft smile she wore in her humble shop. She was dressed in a gown of rich fabric, adorned with traditional beadwork, the vision of beauty. But the most beautiful thing about her was the pure joy and love that radiated from within her. David, resplendent in traditional attire, met her at the ceremonial arbor, his eyes shining with love and adoration. They exchanged vows, not just of love and fidelity, but of partnership, respect, and a shared commitment to using their lives and their future together for good. Life changed dramatically for Anya, of course. Her tiny shop was closed, but she ensured that the people who depended on her goods found other places to buy what they needed, and she even used some of her new resources to help a few struggling traders in the market. She moved into the grand Kipkomboi home, a place of luxury she had never imagined. There were servants to attend to her, fine clothes to wear, and an abundance of food and comfort. But Anya did not forget where she came from. She did not let the wealth change the core of who she was. She used her new position and resources not for frivolous pursuits, but to extend her kindness on a larger scale. She worked with David to establish programs that helped the less fortunate in the region. They funded schools for children who couldn't afford education, set up clinics for those who needed medical care, and supported farmers during difficult seasons. Anya, who had known hunger, ensured that no one in their reach went without food. Anya, who had known loneliness, created spaces for community and support. She remained the same Anya, gentle, humble, and deeply compassionate. She spoke to everyone she met, rich or poor, with the same respect and warmth. She listened more than she spoke, and her quiet wisdom was sought after by many. Elder Kipkomboi and his wife often marveled at their son's choice, seeing how Anya's presence brought not just happiness, but a new depth of purpose and humanity to their lives and their family's legacy. David loved Anya more and more each day. He often told her that coming to her in disguise was the wisest thing he had ever done, for it had allowed him to find a love that was unconditional, a partnership built on truth and genuine goodness. He had tested the world for kindness, then found its most perfect embodiment in her. And so, the poor, hard-working lady from the market, whose parents had passed too soon, found not just love, but a life of purpose and profound happiness, all because she had an overflow of kindness in her heart. She proved that the greatest riches are not measured in coins or possessions, but in the wealth of a generous spirit and the willingness to share your light with the world.